Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our August regular school board meeting. We're grateful that you're here. Call this meeting to order. Stacy will offer our pledge and Kelly will offer the invocation.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the opportunity to meet here tonight to serve the students and staff of Show Low Unified School District. We're grateful for all of our blessings, and we're grateful for a wonderful start to a new school year. We pray for our students, their families, and our staff members who serve them so well, and we're so grateful for all that they do for us. And we're grateful for the freedoms that we're afforded and for thy love and thy blessings. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Amen.
Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 4.1, approval of meeting minutes.
I move to approve the meeting minutes for the July regular board meeting and the special board meeting minutes as presented. A second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 5.1, financials.
I move to approve the financial agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on anything on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 6.1, public comment. It looks like we have 3 folks that want to visit with us. Remind you have about 3 minutes. State your name when you come up and we'll start with Janelle Sterner. I'm doing this in order of how they were handed to me, so.
Good evening, board member. My name is Janelle Sterner, and I want to say congratulations on your first 2 weeks of school, because it's been 2 weeks. The reason I am up here talking about is your safety with the high school and junior high. I live right down the street. I work down the street from there, and walking the first day, Wednesday, I had even teachers at my school that said they almost ran over kids because kids were popping out of there, running, and it gets so hectic. When I'm walking down 4th Avenue, I can see those kids just bolt. Now, I know you guys have a crosswalk down a little bit further. I think it's 6th Drive or 8th Drive down there. Problem is those kids want to go from 4th Avenue for most of them, because I was walking with them saying hi, have a good school day, and they just want to run. So that's the reason I'm just up here, is that I really either think it'd be great if you're able to, with the city of Show Low, get another crosswalk down there. I don't know the guidelines, but that would be another one, or maybe even get another person. I know you have somebody out there on the other side of stopping and getting a crosswalk guard there, but there's been many times I really don't want to see kids die. I don't think anybody wants to. So thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it.
Jim Powell, please.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the phone call and the email on the questions I asked last time about the Bible and why it's not being taught in the schools, about the 10 Commandments. And I understand that they are laws established by Arizona ARS 15341 and 15535. It's kind of disheartening. I guess I need to go to legislature from there, right? So, but then on the Constitution of the United States, we briefly talked about that. And I just wanted to read a thing that this is the printed, and we can purchase these. And I just want to remind us here, because the Constitution of the United States, it says here, to commemorate the September 17, 1787 signing of the Constitution of the United States, Congress has designated September 17th of each year as Constitution Day, and September 17th through the 23rd of each year as Constitution Week. In 2004, Public Law 108-447, Section 111 was passed requiring the following. Each educational institution that receives federal funds for a fiscal year shall hold an educational program on the United States Constitution on September 17th of such year for the students served by the educational institution. Each federal agency or department shall provide educational and training materials concerning the United States Constitution to each employee on September 17th of each year. In keeping with these congressional mandates, recent presidents have solicited help from federal and local government leaders, as well as civic and religious leaders, to hold events to commemorate this occasion. We encourage all citizens to use their influence to organize and support programs that honor the Constitution. Resources for holding such a celebration may be found at www.nccs.net. Okay, and I just want to bring this to our attention. I spoke with our superintendent about this, and if it's not being taught in our schools, again, I just want to readdress that and hang the Constitution on the walls, the Bill of Rights on the walls, so that they are seen by our students and taught to our students every year. And again, I have children and grandchildren in this school, and as a citizen, as a taxpayer, I would like to see this implemented in our schools, in our educational program.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Janet?
Hi, good evening. My name is Janet LeBlanc. I'm a resident and a taxpayer of Show Low School District. I'm here to talk about the future direction of this district, as well as the most recent Title IX amendment that consists of 1,577 pages. And I would like to ask if each of you read those. If you're going to implement this, you should know what you're implementing. I was appalled to discover that there's a Title IX link on your website and that our tax dollars are paying for a Title IX coordinator. My question to you is, why? Taking this into consideration, I safely assume that this board is aware that you currently support and promote furries, amongst other things in your district. Is that correct? To that, I say, shame on each one of you. Yes, you, the governing board, has stooped down for the almighty dollar, supporting and promoting the mental illness of our children. This is false teaching. Any God-fearing person knows that Scripture tells us in Matthew 18:6, Mark 9:42, and Luke 17:2 that it would be better for you to be thrown into the sea with a millstone tied around your neck than to cause one of these little ones to stumble. Way too many of our elected officials swear to uphold the Constitution per their oath of office, yet when the rubber meets the road, they don't uphold that oath. In those instances, I can't help but ask, do you even know the Constitution? Well, we are here to help you with that, as well as hold you accountable to your oath. Are you aware that the federal government has no constitutional authority in our educational system? Therefore, any orders placed by the federal government are illegal, unlawful, and unconstitutional, and do not, I repeat, do not require compliance to this district or any district for that matter. Therefore, the Title IX amendment is illegal and unconstitutional and should not be complied to. I realize there's a lawsuit in process regarding Title IX, but I ask that you not just sit on the sidelines and wait to see what happens. Recently, the Dysart School District in Arizona approved a resolution regarding the Title IX amendment. I am requesting that the Show Low School District follow suit and approve the same resolution. and I have a copy here for your review. I am requesting a follow-up to my questions asked here tonight, as well as an answer to my request to adopt the resolution regarding Title IX amendments at your next board meeting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Can I leave this?
Sure, bring that right up here and bring it to me. And then feel free at any time to contact the district directly. You can visit with the superintendent about a lot of these concerns, or all of those concerns for that matter.
Will these questions be answered at the next board meeting?
I would encourage you to visit with him, and then we'll talk about it. What won't be made public?
The answers to my questions.
Get with him, and then we'll get together in a work study session. We'll talk about it, and we'll go from there.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Please, thanks. Okay, thank you, everybody. 7.1. That's you, I think.
Not gonna announce me? No, I'm just kidding. So Karen Smith is on the line. And we're gonna, there she is.
Perfect.
Evening.
Hello, everybody.
Oh, there we go. So we're gonna present to you an update on what we've been going through, and I'm gonna turn the time over to her, and she's gonna start the presentation, and then I'll chime in after her.
Excellent. Okay, Shaylee, are you going to bring up the presentation?
Yes, it is up.
You can
There
see
we
it on
go.
your side?
There we
Perfect.
go.
Okay. Looks like we need to jump back a couple of slides. One more. Yeah, that's good. Leave it right there. That's perfect,
Okay,
actually.
there we go.
Perfect. Okay, well, good evening, everybody. So I hope you're doing well, and I'm excited to be here again with you virtually to do a little bit of a business services update. And then Shaylee is going to share with you some information on kind of where we're going from here. So what we've done is we have identified a couple of key milestones that we had this past year in the business services office and the business services functions within the district. So I was just going to talk about a couple of these different items here, just to kind of bring back to light some of the accomplishments that we've had. So these are just a couple of the big items that we had this past year going on within the district. So you may recall that one of the big items that were on the forefront when I first started working with the district was the Auditor General's Corrective Action Plan. And you may recall that we submitted our corrective action plan to the Auditor General's office just a little bit less than a year ago. It was in October of 2023. And the Auditor General's office came out to the district in December of 2023. And later in March, they notified us that they were removing us from that corrective action status. So that was a huge lift for the district. Primarily, that kind of leads into many of the other items that we're going to talk about tonight, specifically many of the procedures that we're going to be presenting to the governing board for implementation moving forward, because all of those procedures were established in accordance with the requirements that we have from whether it be our federal dollars that we receive to our state and local requirements, but essentially everything that's put forth as far as the requirements that we have to follow. Another big item that we had was the issuance of our 2023 audit. So I presented that to you several months back, where we had our 2023 audit completed. That field work actually took place just a couple of weeks after the Auditor General's office came in, but the big difference between that was the Auditor General's office was looking at all of our 23-24 transactions, where our FY23 audit was for the prior year. So we had that audit issued, and you accepted that audit a couple of months back. We have since done all of the regulatory requirements of uploading that to the Department of Education School Finance. We uploaded our single audit to Department of Education Grants Management. It was issued to the County Superintendent's Office, and of course to the Federal Clearinghouse as well. We have also engaged our auditors for 2024, and we actually have that field work scheduled for early October. So I'll be back on site in early October to work with the auditors on the 2024 audit. We've also implemented a new accounting system for FY25 for many of our cash controlled accounts. Essentially what that means is we established a chart of accounts that allows us to track all of the transactions within our accounting system. We also brought all of our banking into the ERP system that we use so that we don't have separate spreadsheets to, again, avoid any errors and also make it more efficient for managing those local bank accounts. And we've started rolling out all of these different account code strings to our sites who have the student activities. So that's like your student council, your various different sports team clubs, things such as that. We have our auxiliary monies, which there's various different course fees at the high school level. More specifically is probably one of the more common items, some bookstore operations that we have in our schools. Of course, our tax credit dollars, those are Arizona Public School tax credit monies that our citizens in Arizona have the option to take a income tax credit against those monies that are provided to the district. And then, of course, our CTE projects as well. Because we have so many of those activities across the schools, it's important that we keep them separated. So, for example, with tax credit, if somebody wants to donate their tax credit funds to football, we have those segregated in the chart of accounts from the monies that are given to baseball, as an example. So all of that required a lot of collaboration with the campuses, with the athletics team, with the CTE programs, so that we could make sure that we have all of that infrastructure built so we can manage all of those different accounts. We've also done quite a bit in our ERP system. So that is our school ERP Pro, which we refer to as Visions. That's the former software name, and some of us can't get off of that old software name. So that is where we essentially have all of our budget, all of our general ledger, our capital assets, our payroll processing, all of our human resources records. We do all of our purchasing, accounts payable, etc. That's what our ERP Pro system is. And what we have done for this for FY25 is we're really looking at how we can more effectively and efficiently use that. To give you some examples, in the past, when a school wanted to issue a purchase order, they would fill out the requisition within the system, but then they would print it, physically sign it, scan it, and send it over to the business office. So an example of how we're more effectively using the system is we're now routing all of that through the software rather than somebody having to stop, print it, sign it, scan it, and send it over. It's all being managed within the system itself. So that was, a big item. Also making sure that the sites and the departments have access to the information they need so they can track their budgets. They can see the information. They can see, for example, where that purchase order is in the routing, so they know who's basically kind of, if you think about it like the desk, whose desk is it on, to make sure that it's being processed along, but it's an electronic desk versus a piece of paper floating around. We have implemented a new credit card program with stronger controls. We also eliminated all of the individual store cards, and we're using one larger account with US Bank, which allows us to better monitor the use of the credit card as well as track the utilization and have cards that are issued for each of the campuses, for each of the departments, so that it's easier to tie those back to the purchase orders that authorize the use of those credit cards. We have corrected all of the prior federal tax filing delinquencies that were in place. So we're on a regular cycle of filing those federal taxes and have been now since October. So all of that was caught up, and we have a systematic approach of making sure that that doesn't fall behind. We completed a physical inventory this past spring. So while all the kids were off campus during spring break, our staff came in and did a physical inventory of all of the district's assets and re-tagged all of our assets. So to give you an idea, that's like that barcodes tag that you will see on all of our district assets that have a value of greater than $1,000. That barcode scan tag has a number on it, which is then being updated within our ERP system to ensure that we have a complete physical inventory of all of our assets. We're in the process right now of reconciling that physical inventory against our listings so that we can bring forward to the governing board a complete disposal listing of things that the district legitimately got rid of in prior years, but now we need to take it off of the listing. You may recall that that physical inventory had not been done for a number of years, and that was one of our corrective action items that we had to correct because we are required to do that inventory on a regular interval cycle. And so we're back on track with that for the district. We have established a number of operating procedures that I'm going to share with you this evening as well. And we've already started with some of the training and implementation of that so that staff have a clear understanding of what those operating procedures are. We can advance to the next slide. The last item that I have as part of that look back period is really for this year, but a lot of the work that we did this last spring was establishing the budget for FY25. And you know that there was a lot that went into that budget. That budget included looking at our projections for enrollment for FY25. It also looked at our compensation increases, the health insurance increases, and looking to establish a contingency budget for the district as well, so that we can address unforeseen needs that come across the district as well. So quite a bit went into that budget development process. And throughout this past spring semester, you'll recall there were a number of presentations that we would provide to the governing board to keep you well informed of the various different variables, both at the state legislative level, as well as some of those determinations that we had to make within the district, such as compensation increases for our staff. So if we can jump to the next slide. So as we look ahead, I mentioned that we've established a number of different procedures. So what this bullet list really entails is a very comprehensive procedure manual that you'll see a little bit later on today's agenda that we are asking the governing board to basically kind of give their blessing to this procedure manual that we have established. It's a rather extensive procedure manual. I am hopeful that as governing board members, you are able to kind of take a skim through it. I would not expect you to have fully digested every procedure included. There was about 150 pages of documented procedures that we have put into place, as well as consistent documentation to be able to implement those requirements. But you can see here we have procedures in the area of our budgeting process, how we are tracking all of our revenues that come into the schools and into the district, all of our grants management, of course, all of our expenditures, which include all of the accounts payable processing that we have, as well as our competitive procurement, ensuring that we have sound conflict of interest procedures. As I mentioned before, the credit card procedures, not just the use of the credit cards, but also the documentation and the internal auditing of the credit cards that we utilize within the district. We have established employee, governing board, and student travel procedures to make sure that we have the right controls in place to make sure that when it's appropriate for the governing board to take action on those travel decisions, as well as making sure that any expenses that are associated with travel are in accordance with the Arizona Department of Administration allowable travel rates. We have a number of procedures in place around journal entries and voiding our warrants. Our warrants, as you may recall, are essentially our checks that are drawn against the county treasurer's bank accounts. We have an extensive payroll cycle. Again, if you look at our operating expenditures, probably about 80% of those expenses are for people, and payroll is very personal to people. So we want to make sure that payroll is right the first time. That's an area that we want to make sure we have sound procedures, because you want to make sure what a friend of ours, Aaron Vicks, always says is you want to measure twice and cut once. So you want to make sure that you've got that payroll correct the first go around. So we've established some sound payroll cycles. We have some federal reporting around time and effort when we have staff funded from our federal funds. As I mentioned, capital assets. So from the acquisition all the way through the disposal process of our capital assets, The district has a very extensive capital asset listing that includes the land that our buildings and our district office is on, the buildings themselves, and then everything that we have that fills those buildings. The district participates in the Medicaid reimbursement program, so we have established procedures in that area. The supplies that we maintain, for example, over in our warehouse that our schools are able to access, that could include many of our custodial supplies, copy paper, things like that that we want to have on site so that the schools have access to that on a pretty immediate basis. Again, with our overall capital assets and property control, ensuring that, all of our property is properly accounted for, all of our different cash controlled accounts, our student activities. So when you are being asked to approve a fundraiser, we have procedures around that. When, again, we have individuals who are providing their tax credit contributions to the district, we have procedures around that as well. Any gifts and donations. One of the things I really appreciate about the Show Low Governing Board is you don't just accept those gifts and donations, you recognize those, whether it be local businesses or individuals that are making those donations. So again, making sure that we have the right controls in place to accept and properly record those donations. All of the necessary reconciliations that we must do. So we have a number of different local bank accounts, many of those tied to our payroll processing, but also for the ability to immediately deposit our funds. And then we also have our larger balances that are held with the county treasurer. So we have a monthly reconciliation process that goes on with all of those accounts that we have established procedures for. And then finally, our food service claims. So our food service claims are essentially when we are providing our breakfast and lunch program. There are students that qualify for free meals that the federal government reimburses us for. There's also students that qualify for a reduced price meal. And then, of course, our students who pay for their meal, the federal government actually provides us a reimbursement for a portion of that paid meal so that the entire cost is not passed on to the families. So these are all just, a summary of many of the different procedures that we have established as we kind of look ahead. And, with that, as we go ahead to the next slide, what we've established with this, when we built all these procedures, first and foremost, we wanted to make sure that these procedures were aligned to the requirements that we must follow. And there is a lot of regulations set forth on school districts, primarily because if you think about it, there's a lot of public dollars that are flowing through our school districts. And, of course, for the protection of our students and ensuring that we are following all of those local, state, and federal requirements when it comes to the resources that we receive. When we established these procedures, we also wanted to ensure they were documented so they could be consistently implemented across all of our schools and the departments. We wanted to ensure that everybody clearly understood what their responsibilities were, but also not just make sure that they understood where they fell within that process, but they knew kind of where it came from in the process and where it's going afterwards. So you'll see within the documented procedures, we have the entire cycle identified so that the individual who's doing a particular step within that procedure understands what's happened prior to that process coming to them and where it's going after it leaves their desk. We've established a numerous, probably dozens of template forms and documentation. And again, that is to provide for that consistency and ensure that we have the appropriate documentation to support and demonstrate our compliance with these local, state, and federal requirements. And as I explained a little bit earlier, where we are looking to most effectively utilize our software systems, so whether that be our timekeeping system or the timekeeping system feeding into our payroll processing system. Those are just some examples of making sure that we are fully utilizing the software systems that the district has invested in. And then, of course, with all of this comes accountability. And that's going to be really the key as we look to our next steps of ensuring that now we can make sure that everybody's following these documented procedures so that we don't go back to some of those non-compliance areas that we were in the past, that we are able to ensure that all of that hard work to kind of get us out of that corrective action, that we can stay out of that corrective action and be able to implement the correct procedures, the right procedures as it relates to the requirements, but also making sure that they're most effective and efficient for the district operations. So that's a little bit kind of where we were and kind of some of these documented procedures. I'm going to turn it back over to Shaylee at this point so she can talk to you a little bit about kind of where we're taking it from here. So it's like a little bit of like the handoff in that we've established all of this, and now with the new business manager in place for the district, how she's going to be able to kind of take this and run with it to be able to support our schools and our departments. So Shaylee, I'll pass it back to you now.
Great, thanks, Karen. So yeah, after Karen and I have worked together very closely on the procedure manual, and we've read it several times and made corrections over the last, I've been here 3-4 months now, and we've got a great procedure manual, and this has been given to all the schools, all the departments, and so now it's a matter of helping everybody understand it and what their responsibilities are. So first off, I'm meeting with the finance secretaries once a month and going over the manual. So we take a piece of the manual and really dive deep into it and make sure they understand each piece of the manual and answer any questions and really just make sure they understand their roles and responsibilities for each of the areas that Karen talked about. So that's been really helpful. They really appreciate that. And we had our first meeting last Friday, and they really were very grateful for that. And so just to show you, they each got a manual like this. We call it our Bible. And it's got the part of the USFR chart of accounts in it, as well as the big manual in it. They were also given the USFR chart of accounts that Karen's office provided for each of them that they can use to help find how to code things. So this was given to each of the departments, or department and school secretaries, and they're told to bring this to each monthly meeting so that they know where to go and we can review it. And it's also a living, breathing document. And we ask them as they're going through their processes to use the procedure manual. And if they see anything that we may need to make changes or have suggestions, that they're encouraged to reach out to our staff, and we'll look at it and talk about it and see if we need to make changes. So we're all a part of making the changes to these and making sure it works for everybody and across all the districts. So it's a really great opportunity. We love these meetings. It just is a really good collaborative opportunity for all of us. And then I work with my staff. We had our first, well, not our first, but we meet bi-weekly. And I had Dr. Farnsworth meet with us today so he could see what we do. But I work with them and make sure that they know what their processes are and what their responsibilities are regarding the procedures. So that works great. And then they can help also the departments and the schools so that they know what their processes are. So it's a real collaborative process for everybody. And then ongoing meetings to support the operations. So even in admin, so that's the departments and the finance secretaries, but we also want to make sure the admins know how their process, how they fit into all of this. So we have bi-weekly admin meetings where Dr. Farnsworth lets me have a portion of that where I can help them understand that. And I think I'll probably also have more extensive trainings with them on different times so that they know, again, what their processes are and their responsibilities. And then the documentation of the compliance. So that's where she talked about the different forms. Those forms are so important because that's where we got to make sure that we are in compliance with the state and federal statutes. So those forms, again, we worked very hard on. Today, as a matter of fact, great example, we were working on some cash collection forms, and we saw where one of the schools said, I think we need this in one of the forms. We evaluated it, Christy and I were evaluating it. We're like, you know what, great suggestion. And we made the addition to the forms. So that's where we worked collaboratively. And again, we need those for compliance. And then adhering to the deadlines and requirements. So important, again, all this is in the procedure manual, when those deadlines are due, making sure everybody gets their deposits in a timely manner, and that's all outlined in the procedure manual. And then I have a bi-weekly meeting, so this is where Karen was talking about handing it off to me and doing what I'm supposed to do, but she's a great resource and a great consultant that now we're gonna have bi-weekly meetings so she can check in with me, what do I need from her, what does she need from me, so that she's always there to help me make sure I make sure I get what I need to do my job to the best of my ability. So great, we're excited about this. Everybody's excited about this. They're great. They're grateful to have a good direction.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
I guess I'm kind of curious because I love this. I'm so glad that we took the time to make this, so clear of what the expectations are. As inevitably the rules change and we have to make updates and, I feel like, so this is great for right now, and then next year it's going to change a little, and the year after that's going to change a little. What happens when someone has their Bible that they've had for 5 years and never got the update? So just how are you going to kind of manage the changes that will inevitably have to be made?
Well, and it won't just change over a year. They will change throughout the year. And that's why we have these monthly meetings, so that they get those changes, as well as they have these in writing, but we also gave them a link to electronic document. And as we get the changes, so if they come before our meeting and it's real important that they need to know it now, I will send out periodic emails. Just like, again, we changed one of the forms today. I send out a mass email. Here's the new form, throw away the old one. Here's the new one, and you need to use it right now. So we'll give them periodic emails with changes, but monthly, if there's any changes that can wait for the month, then we'll let them know. So absolutely. Good question. Any other questions?
I just wanted to thank you for this, and you and Karen both, for coming up with that, because I do think that it's helpful for everybody. And you said one word a couple different times that I love: collaborative.
Yes.
Working with the staff and in teaching and working together to do that, to make sure we're in compliance with everything. So thank you. I'm excited for this.
And we are too.
This will make everyone's job easier because they know what they're supposed to do. And there might be a lot of things they've been doing that they don't even need to be doing. And
Exactly.
hopefully this will be a more simple way of making sure you're doing it right. And then that'll make the audit so much easier.
Exactly. And I think we all like to work as a team. We really enjoyed being with each other on Friday. And Dr. Farnsworth was in there as well when we met with all the secretaries. So I think they all enjoyed being together and be able to work together. So.
Can I jump in real quickly also with,
Oh, Karen, I'm sorry.
sorry, I'm like a couple seconds delayed, so I apologize if I just cut somebody off. One other thing I wanted to say about the updates is there might be some updates that are kind of outside of our control. For example, if the state makes a change. So we'll continue to keep the district apprised of that, so that Shaylee can work those into the updates as well. And you'll notice that when you see the item on the agenda later to kind of give that blessing, within that, to say, yes, these are our procedures. This is what the expectation is that all staff follow. But it does say, and to delegate the authority to the superintendent and the business manager, that when updates need to be made, that those updates can be made. So that way it's not something that has to be brought back to the board, similar to like some of our more formal policies that our governing board adopted, that we can continue to keep this as a living document. And if we find that we can be more efficient, maybe we can cut some procedures out. Or if we need to find that we need to be, have a couple of extra steps in there, we can continue to make that, as Shaylee said, a living document that people know that we are going to continue to keep it as current as whether it be a new state requirement or something that we establish locally that we identify we need to make a change to it.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much. Let us know how it goes.
Thank you.
Congrats. Yeah.
Appreciate it so much. Any further discussion or anything on that, guys? Okay. 7.2, Principals Report. This is a non-action item. Everybody got them? Everybody saw them?
Yes, they were wonderful.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much
They were awesome. Appreciate it.
to all of you that put those in. And
And I like that this is public. Anyone can go read these and get an idea of what's going on with the schools.
anything else on that? 7.3, first reading of model policies and procedures.
So just want to share with the board that the trust sent us a 73-page update on model policies that reflect changes in the state legislature. And so these policies, again, this is a non-action item. It's a first reading. I've read through all of these and I've shared the appropriate policies with our cabinet directors and principals already, so they can look at those to see how they impact their campuses. And so that's just for your information at this time.
Thank you. 7.4, superintendent's report.
So thank you, Mr. President. Just quickly, I just wanted to share a couple things. First of all, I just want to thank our directors and principals for being here. I appreciate them. I know they're very busy professionally and personally. So thank you for making that sacrifice. And also I want to thank them for a great start of the school year. I was able to go to every campus, I think the first or second day, and there was just a palpable energy, positivity, excitement. And so I just want to thank the leaders, the teachers for a great first week. And I just appreciate all that they do. As you can see in my report, I was in Tucson at an ASBO conference with Ms. Davis and some business office officials, again, to get training, to get up to date on what's the latest and greatest in terms of school finance. So that was great. Thank you to Karen and Shaylee again for working on the business manual. Karen was up here for 2 days helping us, working with us. And I do want to point out that although Karen we brought her in as an expert, Shaylee is the boots on the ground. She's got to execute. She's doing a fantastic job with her team. She's coaching them, she's teaching them, she's coaching up the principals, the school finance secretaries, building capacity, and it's a very collaborative growth mindset approach, which is what we've been needing. And so I'm very thrilled that Shaylee's doing that. I was able to speak at New Teacher Orientation. I want to thank Charla for putting together a great week with all of our new hires. It went very well. I've attended a couple virtual conversations with Raptor. If you're not familiar with Raptor, we use them for some of our safety and security protocols. And I'm looking into additional safety and security protocols that we may be able to leverage in all of our campuses. So more information will be coming about that. Continuing to work with relationships. I met with the Snowflake superintendent. We had a great time talking and visiting with each other. We interviewed we had a great panel of 8 candidates for our director of operations to replace Sean. And I'd like to introduce Frank Rael, who's here. I'm sure he'll be up for adoption later. Please say yes. He's been great. So thrilled to have him here and kind of jumping in. We're looking at some HVAC redesigns with Whipple. That whole campus needs to be reevaluated. So we're looking at engineering. It has been approved. I don't think it has been approved by the school facilities grant, but we're looking to get engineering and quotes so we can submit it for approval. Shaylee already talked about the trainings that she's doing. We are holding our district leadership meeting every 2 weeks. So I thoroughly enjoy it. And then on the off weeks, I'm going to be visiting with the secondary principals and then the elementary principals individually. And just a couple items to note: we have started our bus evacuation drills. So those have been going on this week. The Navapache Superintendent Association meeting, that's going to be happening soon. Shaylee and I will be going to that. It's in Snowflake. The ASBA Legal Conference, I believe some of you will be attending with me. Just show of hands, how many are going with me? Perfect. So we'll be.
I thought you were going with us.
I will be going with you. I will be going. So you'll be paying for everything, right?
Sure.
Okay. With your paycheck that you get. Just to make sure you're aware on your calendar, September the 10th, we will be going into executive session to work with Timothy Ogle. So make sure that's on your radar, and that's going to be about 4 o'clock at the district office. And then September 12th, we will have our regularly scheduled board meeting.
Are we also going to have a 5 o'clock study session that day or just a 6:30 meeting?
Whatever the board would like me to do. So as we get to the end of the agenda, as further agenda items, if you would like to have a study, so just let me know. And that is my report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. 8.1 classified personnel employment. Several names here.
Just a note, there was a typo on the first two where it says 8 hours per week. It should say 8 hours per day. So that was just a typo. Just want you, once we publish it, we can't go in and change it, but just so you know.
Well, I asked because I thought maybe, that first one maybe was what we passed last month. That was for 10 hours a week. I'm like, oh, that must be it. And then we went, wait, no, but the next one too, probably not a custodian. Like, that wouldn't make sense.
Sorry.
Typos happen. So I moved to approve it, but with the correction that for Hayden Farr and David Cornell, it is 8 hours per day, 5 days per week.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 8.2. Dr. Farnsworth.
You do have in front of you the resignation and transfers and the letters associated. And we ask that you recommend to approve them. I would like to make a special note for May Begay, who retired today. Well, she'll be working in the next couple of days, but there was a great little celebration at the high school. I was able to meet her and shake her hands. She served 22 years at the high school as a custodian, so I think that deserves special attention, and we appreciate her.
I'll move to approve the classified resignations and retirement as presented with a big thank you to May and good luck.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 8.3, certified personnel employment. Dr. Farnsworth.
Nothing of special note, but just recommend that you look at those and then approve those.
I move to approve certified personnel and extra duty work as presented and transfers.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 8.4, activities, personnel employment. Dr. Farnsworth.
So we'd like to recommend Frank Rail as the Director of Operations. He's got an extensive background, and we included his resume, so you have access to that.
Skip 8.4.
Yeah, we're on
8.4.
8.4.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Activities, personnel.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Nothing of note, and just would recommend that you would approve those. And tying back into a previous conversation, I did communicate with the athletic director about our fingerprint policy per state statute, that they need to have their fingerprints and that we are holding firm to that. And he has communicated that to all of his varsity coaches and assistant coaches. So that is being communicated down the line.
I move to approve as presented.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now 8.5.
So Frank Rail, we recommend that he be approved for the Director of Operations. You see his resume with his extensive background. And I just want to thank the interview committee. We had community members, we had a board member, we had our athletic director, and our maintenance foreman. In addition to Shaylee and I looking at the candidates interviewing, we interviewed 8. And we were unanimous with our recommendation for Frank, and we feel very good about him being the next Director of Operations.
I move to approve Frank as presented.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Let's see, 8.6. Dr. Farnsworth.
This is a proposal by the high school principal for a lead counselor stipend. it has been brought to my attention that we had a counselor shift, and the current veteran counselor has been there just doing a lot of the heavy lifting and the training. And so I worked with the high school principal saying, well, look, we need a job description if we're going to have a stipend. This is paid out of Title II funds, so it's not going to make an impact on our M&O budget. And this is pretty common across high schools where you may have a lead counselor kind of take on more of an administrative role and some of the training responsibilities. And so I would recommend that we would approve this stipend.
I move to approve the lead counselor stipend as presented at the high school.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Are you bringing someone
Next month,
next month? Great.
he'll have to go through an interview process, post, make sure we
Perfect.
are looking at all the potentials.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 8.7. Here we go.
This is the manuals that we presented to you in the presentation, so that we ask you to approve these.
Who's going to be meeting with boosters, PTOs, PTAs, and all of those to communicate?
That will be done at the school level, but one of my staff will be at those meetings to answer any questions. Most of the time it'll be me. Unfortunately, the high school will be meeting tomorrow and I will be out of town. So, but I will have a staff there for that.
I'll move to approve as presented with big thank you.
Thank you. I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 8.8, WMI interventionist position.
So this is a grant-funded position. So if you'll remember, last month, we approved a reading coach, part-time reading coach. This is different. This is for an interventionist. So this is going to help allow a current staff member make home visits outside of the regular school day and kind of bridge that gap with some of our at-risk kids. So home visits, parent relationships outside of the school day, that's what this is. And so it's paid out of a grant, and we ask that you would approve this.
So it's not bringing in a new person to go do it. But it's basically an off-duty hours, but
Off-duty hours,
it's in a grant-funded position
Yes,
that is
ma'am.
separate from their normal
correct.
job position.
Yep.
Okay.
So you don't have a specific interventionist person
We have a specific
Well-
person we're looking
in
at.
this role?
Say that again?
Who will fill this role?
So the interventionist, most likely it will be Miss Roach, who's kind of overseeing the WMI anyway, and she's got a great relationship with parents and kids, and so we can't expect her to do things at 9 o'clock at night and 10 o'clock at night off of her contract time, and so this is, go out, meet with parents, kids, nights, weekends, and so this is just a small stipend to compensate for that.
Great move.
I move to approve the hiring of WMI interventionist as presented.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. 8.9, second reading, board policy, Title IX. Dr. Farnsworth.
So, as we heard earlier from Call to the Public, Title IX is a hotly debated issue and litigated currently at the federal level. This policy, and I talked to the attorney that wrote this policy, and I've read the policy, and it's there for the public to look at. It's really updating our procedure, right? Who's the hearing officer? How do you file an appeal? What is the process? And so this updates our processes, not by a whole lot, but there's some language changes that allows our current Title IX person to operate with the current standard. However, if you look at the motion, per our legal counsel suggested that if in fact the Title IX legal battles change the current status of the Title IX, that we revert back to our previous Title IX policy without further board action. So just wanting you to be fully transparent of what's going on. Any questions on this? Because I know this can be misinterpreted a lot of different ways.
Well, because it's being recommended by our legal counsel, I kind of feel like we're bound by it at this point in time. And I know that there are, other people's interpretations and other ways we could be looking at it. But at this point, I feel like it's safe for the district to follow our legal counsel's advice. So I move to approve Board Policy Title IX as presented by administration, but also add that if in fact a court decision affects the viability of the proposed Title IX changes, that we would revert back to the prior policy without further board action.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion, further discussion on this? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. 8.10, school properties disposal. Frank, you wanna talk or just, I mean, this is a big one here.
Has your name next to it.
Ah, your name's next to
Xyron
it.
Laminator.
I'll say for,
Want to ease you in here.
per policy, we need to ask the board if we can dispose of this Xyron laminator. It's expired.
Okay.
I move to approve to expose, get rid of it.
A second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
8.11, media and broadcast coverage agreement.
So this is kind of a neat situation where if we were to sign this MOU, this agreement with this broadcasting, they will broadcast our football games, all of our home athletic events. There's a financial incentive that if you read the contract, that they will pay our district for broadcasting. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but it is some money. This has been approved. When I was going back to other previous agendas 2 years ago, it was board approved.
I read this before.
Yeah,
No,
and
good.
so I reached out to our athletic director. He got the current contract to make sure we're all aligned. And so I would recommend that you would approve this. It's good exposure for our kids. It's good exposure for our school. It's good exposure for the community.
Has this been happening for the past 2 years after we approved?
That's my understanding. That's my understanding.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll just continue with what we've been doing. Okay.
I move to approve the broadcasting agreement with Simmons for all of the fall activities.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 8.12, overnight field trip. This is a field trip for
Camp Grace.
Nicholas and Lyndon both combined to go to Camp Grace.
So the reason why we'd like you to approve it now, even though it doesn't happen until April 30th, May 2nd, is that once it's approved, it will allow the schools to fundraise for it. So this is kind of like a permission to get the money going and start securing the funds and securing the place. And so I understand this is something that's happened prior. Other schools have gone. And so I'd recommend that you would approve that so they can start collecting the funds for that.
I love that it's coming to us so early so that they can have a school year to fundraise. And also, I know we've discussed in the past, right, Stacy, that we would love to see them as soon as possible, knowing of upcoming trips rather than doing, the Disneyland trip in April when it's going to take place in May. And, we like having as much notice and approving it as soon as possible. So with that, I approve it, or I motion to approve the overnight field trip as presented.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 8.13, student fundraising activity for the junior high.
So to your point, we've communicated to the principals that every fundraiser needs to be approved by the school board before you can do it.
And that's because it's the law. That's
correct. It's not
being
our,
nosy. It's
correct.
because that's
It's-
what's required.
spelled out in policy that the school board has to approve every fundraiser.
And it's in policy because it's
Issue as
in
well.
statute, right?
And so, Becky Clark has done a great job. She has 8 different fundraisers here, so her campus and her student council and different organizations can start doing those. And so I want to thank her for being proactive and ask that you would approve those.
These look great. I move to approve the fundraising activities as presented.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 8.14, gifts and donations.
I I move to approve the gifts and donations as presented. Shola Police Department, 48 Discovery Toy Kits, White Mountain Women's Club miscellaneous school supplies, $200 value. K-12 I can't say it, $224.78. Is it Benevity?
Benevity?
Benevity, $5,925. Step Propane, $53.67.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second and a huge
Thank you.
expression of gratitude for all of the things that our community does for us. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 8.15, October board meeting change possible.
We are proposing to the school board that the original date is, I think, during fall break. And so if it's okay with all of you, we'd like to move it up to October the 3rd. And that way, if you have things planned during October break, or if principals or different people have things, they could not worry about a board meeting.
I move to approve our October regular board meeting from October 10th to October 3rd.
I'll second.
I'm just looking at something here real quick. I am thinking I'm out of town.
Same date and place, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Or not same date, but same day.
Yeah, on a Thursday. I believe I'll be out of state on that date. So you'll be up.
I think I'm going hunting in Canada on that day.
Okay, I'm going with.
Sorry.
I'm going with Paul then. My wife
Can I
can
go with
by
Paul?
herself.
I don't want to go to Canada.
going with Paul, thank you.
Anything to move.
So I have a motion and a second to change the date. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay.
We would have a quorum, correct? We'd have at least 3.
Yeah, if you three will be here.
Yeah, I mean,
And I could be wrong on the date,
You could be wrong. Okay.
but if John's not gonna be here, I might go anyway.
Okay.
You scared of us, Paul?
He just doesn't want to conduct the meeting. It has nothing to do with anything else. Okay, 8.16, consider regular board meeting dates for 24-25 school year.
I would like to propose that we would adopt these dates in full transparency to our community, so they can, if they decide to come, they know when they are. It also helps Courtney in scheduling with the city, so we can coordinate in advance and make sure we have this location and make sure there's no factors that would cause us to move. Obviously, in March, when we get down to spring break, we're probably going to revisit this in January to talk about the spring break board meeting, but
so is March 13th during spring break?
correct.
Yes.
So if we're trying to be transparent, shouldn't we just change that now? Instead of,
You can, or we can wait till we get closer to January when some people have a better idea of what their spring break plans are. It's the board's pleasure.
Yeah, I look at this as just kind of, we've always said we have it on the second Thursday of every month. And that's what each one of these dates turn into. And we'll move them accordingly as we need. I don't know that we need to change it specifically now as opposed to waiting a little while.
So we don't need
I
to wait
mean,
in January anymore?
This board will be
So
changed.
we're meeting in January.
No, I mean, usually in January, this is on the agenda to pick the date.
Oh, is it? Oh, I guess we're 6 months early.
and we just say it's going to be the second Thursday.
Yeah.
You decide in January that that's going to be the,
We
then we can change it.
You can bring it back in January to do it again.
Okay. So do you want an action on this?
We would recommend we would approve those dates, just
Okay. I'll entertain a motion then, please.
I'll move to approve as presented.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 8.17, future agenda items. Anybody have anything that they want to visit about next month?
Did you want to have a work session, or did you not want to have a work session? Do you need one?
So if we don't need one, we don't typically have one. So if nobody has any concerns right at the moment, and unless something pops up between now and then, we'll
If
not need
something
one.
comes up, can we add it to that
Absolutely.
September 10th one that we already have?
Absolutely. Well,
The September-
probably not the 10th one.
Probably not the
That's
10th.
gonna be specifically about
Yeah,
that.
that's gonna be specifically, yeah, we won't deal with any other items on that meeting.
Yeah,
But between now and then, if you have something, you can give me a buzz or Dr. Farnsworth a buzz, and we'll talk about it and throw something together. Easy peasy. Okay, if there are no, nothing on that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all for being here. We will see you next month.